Welcome to I Love This Thing So Frigging Much, a podcast about passion. My name is Sophie Katz, and today I am joined by Audrey Smith, a writer and current MFA candidate at Oregon State University. Welcome to the show, Audrey.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you here. So here's how this works. Audrey will have 3 minutes to talk about something that she loves. This can be a person, place, thing, concept, activity, anything she wants. Our only requirement is that she loves it wholeheartedly and wants to tell us why. Are you ready, Audrey?
I am.
Excellent. Got my timer here. Now, what do you love so frigging much?
How to Get Away with Murder. It is an excellent TV show that recently finished its 6th and final season. It is about a lawyer and law professor at an imaginary law school called Middleton Law, which is set in Pennsylvania. This lawyer is Annalise Keating. She is played by the wonderful Viola Davis, who I'm obsessed with. She's amazing. Follow her on Instagram, for real. And she is a defense attorney and a law professor. She recruits she recruits up to 5 students each year in order to be her interns. I don't really know if and how much these interns get paid. I feel like they deserve a lot more money than they're probably making, though. And so the show follows a specific group of these interns, 5 students, who quickly become embroiled in a tangled web of murder and intrigue. And, of course, there are also cases that these students and Annalise work on, and there are lots of ethical questions that come along with these cases. As I said, Viola Davis plays a defense attorney, and some of the people that they are defending are bad news. And some of them are wrongfully accused, and Annalise helps them as well. But very quickly, there are all sorts of murders. One that happens right off the bat is the murder of Annalise Keating's husband, Sam Keating. And then there are just so many more murders, and by the end, it's like hard to keep track of who murdered whom. So this cast is star-studded. We've got Alfred Enoch, who is previously known as playing Dean Thomas in Harry Potter. I always liked him. He has beautiful eyes. And then there's Liza Wheel, who played Paris Geller in Gilmore Girls. She plays Bonnie Winterbottom. And Alfred Enoch, by the way, plays a character named Wes Gibbons, who is one of the main characters. He's one of the students in question. Liza Wheel plays Bonnie Winterbottom, who is Annalise Keating's right hand. Then there's Matt McGorry, Agent Naomi King, and, of course, Viola Davis. This show is produced by Shonda Rhimes, and it definitely has that Shonda mark to it. And it's written by Pete Nowak. Time works in really interesting ways in this show. It always starts with a flash forward, and then there's a flash forward at the end of each episode as well. And toward the middle of each season, the timelines converge, and you finally figured out who died.
Finish, you thought.
All right. I got it.
You did? All right. Well, thank you for telling us about How to Get Away with Murder today.
Yes.
And as soon as that sentence out of my mouth, it's like, How to Get Away with Murder, the TV show. You are not telling us how to get away with murder today, I assume.
I always feel so awkward every time I, Google it, because I'm always like, How to Get Away with Murder. And then I'm like, Google, I swear I'm talking about the TV show, not, actual murder. So.
You mentioned a lot of the characters and cast in this show. Do any of them stand out as your particular favorite?
Ooh, that's a great question. Wes Gibbons, played by Alfred Enoch, is probably my favorite. For a couple of reasons, I had to change favorites. I won't spoil anything. But Carla Souza plays a character named Laurel Castillo, and she's my favorite. She is just a really interesting character. Her dad is the head of a technology company and is kind of like a shady dude. She's from Mexico and speaks Spanish and often speak Spanish on the show, which, as somebody who's fluent in Spanish, like, I really appreciate and think is really cool. She also speaks French fluently. She's just an all-around badass, and I really like her as an actress as well. Like, Carla Souza seems like a really, really cool person.
Have you seen her in other things as well?
I haven't seen her in other things, but I follow her on Instagram, and she does, like, a lot of self-help type courses that just seem really interesting. And she also has a kid, and the kid is so cute. So, anyway.
Yeah. Can you talk a little more about the ethical questions that this show brings up?
A lot of these ethical questions start out in the classroom at the beginning of the episode, are played out in the courtroom towards the middle and end, and sometimes also take place in the house of Annalise Keating, at least for the first couple of seasons. Again, no spoilers. But a lot of it has to do with just, kind of the idea behind defense attorneys in general, and a lot of the cases that they're using as precedents. And something that gets repeated often is that, like, winning a case as a defense attorney doesn't mean that you proved that the defendant didn't do it. It's more about proving that you can't prove that they did it. So a lot of the ethical questions come from that. And really, Annalise Keating has, I don't know, some people I think would argue that she doesn't really have a moral compass. I would say that she does, but she maybe doesn't always exhibit that in the workplace. She tends to badger witnesses. She also she cheats. She influences juries unfairly and that kind of thing. By the time you're watching the show, you're kind of siding with her, but also, if you think about it as a lawyer, or if you think about it as if she were an actual lawyer, it's like, wow, I really hope that defense attorneys don't actually do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So a lot of it has to do with, perjury. A lot of the ethical questions have to do with perjury, witness tampering, jury tampering, and I don't know. So there's a lot of stuff related to that. And also, this idea of who deserves to have a good defense. And Annalise Keating would say everyone. She would say, I think she would say everyone. And an important thing to know about this show is that a lot of the ethical, well, not really ethical questions, but a lot of the deeper questions of this show have to do with identity. And specifically, there's a lot of diverse representation on the show. So Annalise Keating, played again by Viola Davis, frequently references her experience of being a Black woman, a Black bisexual woman, and also a dark-skinned Black bisexual woman. So those intersections of experience are definitely apparent at various points in the show. I've read, various think pieces that have to do with questions about whether race is brought up enough on the show. But I think, the fact that we have this high-powered, badass attorney at the center of this show who, has all these intersections of identities and is talking about her identities, I personally think it's really cool. And there are so many other characters who come from, various backgrounds as well. So, Asia Naomi King, who's amazing. She's one of my favorites as well. She plays Michaela Pratt, and she is also Black. And there are various other characters of color. Of course, Carla Souza's character speaks Spanish and is a woman of color herself. And there are queer characters. One of the most beloved couples of the show is a gay couple, one of whom is HIV positive. And later in the later seasons, Amira Vaughn comes onto the show to play Tegan Price, and she is also a Black queer woman who is a high-powered lawyer. And so a lot of people have been talking lately about the race-based version of the Bechdel test, the DuVernay test. Mm-hmm. And this show definitely passes that. There are so many conversations that happen only between characters of color and that have nothing to do with taking care of the emotions of white people, although some of those conversations happen as well. But also there's a lot of commentary about white fragility and that kind of thing as well that that I think is really useful and interesting, and I'm excited to see a show that's asking some of those questions and making some of those inquiries.
Definitely. It sounds like this show really paints a picture of the world as it is and as we would like to see it portrayed more often on television. At the same time, as you mentioned before, inserting these things that we hope aren't actually happening in the world. But then if the show is called How to Get Away with Murder, I assume everyone's coming in expecting there to be some things that we don't actually want to be happening in the world, like getting away with murder.
So one of the reasons why I love this show is because Shonda Rhimes, anything that Shonda Rhimes touches, I think turns to gold. She's the Midas of TV. But I also think that sometimes when the world feels like a dumpster fire, it's helpful to watch a show where the world is a much bigger dumpster fire than the one that you're currently experiencing. I find that is true for How to Get Away with Murder and also for Scandal, but How to Get Away with Murder for sure. And that's the reason why I've watched it 4 times in the recent past, because it's sometimes useful to look at somebody else's dumpster fire and be like, oh, well, at least my dumpster fire is not that.
Yeah, I mean, it's escapist.
Exactly.
Audrey, again, thank you so much for telling us about How to Get Away with Murder today.
No problem, anytime.
And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in today. If you would like to learn more about the TV show How to Get Away with Murder or our guest, Audrey, you can find her social media information in the episode description. And don't forget to use the hashtag #LoveThisThingCast to tell us about the things you love. I Love This Thing So Frigging Much is a production of Through the Window Media. This episode was directed by Sophie A. Katz and edited by Melissa Block. You can find us at Through the Window on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or Tumblr. That is THROU the Window at all those social media sites. Be good to yourself, be kind to each other, and you'll hear from us again soon.